Hello and welcome back to the Swift programming course. Today you're going to be learning about protocols in Swift. In object-oriented programming, a protocol or interface is a common means for unrelated objects to communicate with each other. These are definitions of methods and values which the objects agree upon in order to cooperate. In other words, it's how they work together. How do we create a protocol? Well, we type in protocol because we're creating a protocol, and then we give our protocol a name, so some protocol, and then we open it up with our curly braces, and now we need to give our protocol a property that can be written and read, or that can be just written or just read. So we create a variable, and we give this property a name, and we set it to a type, so a string, and then we need to give it the option to be read and written. So get and set. So we're saying whether the property for the protocol can be gotten and set or not. And in this case, it can be gotten and it can be set. So it can be done both ways. This says whether it can be read or written. So how do we create a class that adopts the protocol? So how can we use this protocol in other parts of our code? Well, we create a class, and then we need to give our class a name, so adopt a class, and then we need to adopt the sum protocol, and we can open that up and do our code. Now there's an error because we haven't initialized our class, so let's initialize, and we're going to do sum property of string, and then we need to open that up, and we're doing self.sumProperty is equal to sumProperty. And we need to add in them variables now. So we're going to create a variable, sumProperty, and we're going to have to do that because it hasn't recognized sumProperty from here, but it's been able to adopt it since we've been able to reference it. So what we're doing here is that we're creating a class that can adopt the sum protocol, and then we're getting a property from the sum protocol. Remember how we chose get in here, so we've been able to get the property, and we're also able to set the property because we've been able to do string. And then we're going to initialize the property from the sum protocol, and then we can initialize the property as a property, which also happens to initialize the class itself. Okay, so let's do an example of a protocol. Okay, so let's remove our code. Let's create a protocol, and we're going to call this toggleable. We're going to create a protocol that can essentially virtualize the toggling of a light switch on a wall. So we're going to create a mutating function and call it toggle, and we're going to do empty parameters, and then we need to create an enumeration which we covered in the previous episode, I believe. So let's create an enumeration, and we're going to call this on-off switch, and we're going to adopt toggleable like we did previously, and we're going to add in cases for off and on, so we can create cases for off and on instances of the light switch. And then we're going to call the mutating function, and we're going to add in a switcher so we can check for the off and on instances. So we need to switch the variable self, and we're going to create cases for off, and we're going to set self is equal to on. And then we need to create a case for on, and we need to set self to equal to off. And now we can create a variable that actually stores a value which can be checked and then set toggle to on, because we've now checked these, we've been able to switch it and actually check for off and on instances. So now we can actually create variables and have them to be checked. So let's create a variable, so variable wall switch, and we'll have that equal to on-off-switch.off, which is going to be creating a variable that stores an off value, which can then be checked to set toggle to on. And then we can create other variables to return values. So wall switch is equal to on-off-switch.off, so that will return a value that coordinates with the state of the variable. And then we can actually do wall switch.toggle, so we can toggle it so we can set off to on. And then we can create more variables, and what these will do is will also return a value that coordinates with the state of the variable. And we can do it for both things. We can set it for off and we can set it for on. And as you can see, it says false and it says true because it's been able to check this and then kind of return a boolean, but it's just returning the state of the light switch, whether it's actually toggled on or toggled off, off being false and true being on. And that was protocols in Swift.